Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. Welcome to our monthly critique.
So, yeah, we watched,
No.
What?
Nobody knows who you are.
Girl, everybody knows, well, everybody, we're going to talk about 5 people know who we are.
No, you have to be introduced.
Okay, all right.
Fuck.
No, I refuse.
Listen, I'm Dana.
They know who I am. They know
Dana.
who the hell I am.
Everyone loves me. I'm the favorite. We have Nydia being sighing and miserable. And Cindy,
I'm just going with the flow, Cindy.
she's here to show up.
So we watched What We Do in the Shadows movie.
Yes.
Because it was requested. Well, really, we found out after the fact that they requested to do the show.
I mean, we don't know that for certain, but I guess that's probably true.
Yeah. But there's a movie. And actually, I have a personal connection to it because in 2005, this movie that came out in 2014 was actually a short film that came out in 2005. Waititi and Clement wrote and directed this short film called What We Do in the Shadows. And it's basically a parody of Interview with a Vampire, but they called it What We Do in the Shadows, Interview with Some Vampires.
Okay.
So it was like a silly thing. And it's basically, it shows these roommate vampires that are living in modern times.
Right.
What's that show on that MTV had?
The Real
That it was
World?
like The Real World.
Yeah.
So it's like if The Real World met Interview with a Vampire, met, the whole freaking living together with roommate situations.
Right. Did you watch that 2005?
The short clip?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
It follows very much along the lines
these same
of this.
guys?
Yes, it's the same guys.
Oh, okay.
It's the whole same premise,
Okay.
only more detailed.
In the half an hour thing.
Yes,
Really?
28 minutes. Yeah, about 28 minutes.
Oh, that's funny.
The film is more detailed than
I
the
was
short
about to say,
film.
like,
yeah. So, yeah. In 2014, Waititi, I think that's his name is, he decided to create this film and make it an actual film, like a full,
Hour and a half movie.
full feature film. They decided to do a Kickstarter for it. What ended up happening was the Kickstarter got a lot of support, and one of the supporters was my boyfriend Russ because he likes to support Kickstarter.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that about
Yeah,
him.
so he supports a lot of things on Kickstarter.
Okay.
And he got his name in the credits.
Oh, sweet.
Of a couple of things. I'm not sure because I tried to look this one up, and I don't know if this one his name is on the credits, but anybody that does a Kickstarter at a certain level gets their name in the credits.
Oh, cool.
Which is kind of cute, right?
That's really cool.
Because we helped finance the movie,
Yeah.
they gave us tickets to go for the screening of it for free.
Oh,
So we
okay.
went to Philly, and we got to see it in an old-timey movie theater.
Oh, really?
And it was really, really lovely. The film, the movie theater is like very, ornate. The way that the movie theaters used to be in the old times. And it's like a tiny, tiny little theater. And a group of us and some other people were there. And it was really nice.
That would actually be really cute to watch this, too, because they're like old-timey
Yes.
vampires,
Yes. And it wasn't just that movie. It was a series of other short films.
Oh, cool.
So we got to see the short film before the new, before the other one came out. Yes.
My dad used to be friends with this guy who owned like a bunch of little things. He owned a limo company, he owned all these things. But he owned an old-timey movie theater in Ventnor.
You know it?
I know him.
Okay.
Oh, you know that guy? Mm-hmm. So this was before my son was born. So like we would go there and he would let us watch movies in there, but it was like that. This old timey, like these big pillars and like the curtains. The picture was play on the curtains and the thing. And it was really lovely. It shut.
I wish we could go back to that.
Yeah, it got shut down, unfortunately, but it was just.
It's supposed to be reopening.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This was,
They've been
15
throwing
years
that around.
ago, but that was so cute. And it was really sad to see it close because, like, I love that, like, old-timey.
I know.
It's just
it makes
great.
it feel special.
Yeah.
There was one in Puerto Rico in our hometown that was 2 levels, so you could sit on the balcony and watch the movie from up there.
Like Abraham Lincoln?
It was so cute.
Like Abraham Lincoln. Totally not like Abraham Lincoln. Nobody wants to be shot in the back of the head. So yeah, nobody wants to be shot in the back of the head. How about that? So this is where we make the connection why I had seen it. Now, granted, we went to the short film festival in Philly. We saw the short version of it.
Okay.
Which was hilarious. Then the long, you know, the
one we watched for today,
full feature film was also hilarious because it has a lot of nuances that it feels like like a mockumentary.
Yeah. I thought the documentary portion of the movie, like the way they would clip away to the old timey pictures or the music that they selected, that was, you know, sometimes when
the music was excellent.
Yeah, you watch a documentary and they'll pick like underground, but like popular sounding music or like something that you wouldn't, but it's kind of cool and hip, and you're like, and they just killed it with the documentary. It just really, really had the semblance of a good documentary that you would watch on the History Channel or, you know, A&E
and
the
actors in it all seemed very plausible and realistic and bland, like actual
like
people.
A documentary.
Right, they didn't feel like actors at all.
Even you know, we'll get into the characters and stuff, but the vampire they turn later is like this kind of like weird, dry, nerdy dude where he's like, he thinks he's cool, but he's like kind of not cool, but he is a little bit cool. And you're like, he just reminds me of some asshole they would find on the street and have in a documentary. You know?
Exactly. He was so convincing.
Yeah.
With his averageness.
Yes, right. They all really were.
Right. So the premise of the show is that they're doing a documentary, a mockumentary. But the whole premise of it is that it's a documentary in the months leading up to an event called the Unholy Masquerade.
Right.
And the Unholy Masquerade is a group of undead that gather at this like prom-like event. This documentary film crew is decided to follow one specific group of that masquerade, and they decide to interview the vampires. Right. Even though zombies and others, and witches and other unholies.
But the werewolves were not at the masquerade.
No, because they're not the unholies.
Oh, okay.
But
they're not undead either.
Right, they're not undead.
Gotcha.
So it's so funny because in the beginning they give you the warning, and it says that the crew was granted access to the interview and promised not to be eaten, and that they all wore crucifixes to protect them, which I thought was so freaking funny.
That was very funny.
So the opening scene, Dana has notes that she's gonna but the opening scene, the sweetest vampire, he starts out, he's the A-type personality roommate, and each of those roommates has their own personality, and I think so relatable, like Office, like the show The Office.
It was The Office.
Relatable.
It was The Office with vampires.
With vampires.
That's exactly.
Thank you.
It's a very good description of this,
right? Because the humor was very dry, and you had to actually be smart to pick up on some of the humor.
And you had to really be watching it because I had put it on my laptop and I was doing dishes when I was watching it. I missed a couple of things because when I was like.
There's no laugh track.
Things would come, like, feel like that was supposed to be funny, so I was like, let me actually sit down and watch this. So I was watching it when I was taking notes, and I was like, oh my god, that was actually really funny.
Right.
Like, there was a lot of really funny stuff that you did really have to be paying attention to.
A lot of situational comedy.
Yeah.
You know, where a glance will say a million words, you know?
Right.
So it starts off with them opening the scene with the alarm going off.
Yeah.
And it's 5 a.m. No, 5 p.m.
6 p.m.
It was 5:59 p.m.
Yes, 5:59, but p.m.
Right.
So it gives you like right off the bat, they give you like this ordinariness.
Right.
Like that vampires actually have to set an alarm to wake up.
Right.
And, so it feels so realistic.
He's like checking to make sure it's dark enough outside. He's like, this is the scariest part.
Right.
Like opening the window to see if it's dark enough.
And he's also very neat, and you can tell that he's the leader of the
they called him a dandy man from the 18th century.
Okay. So he's
a hands clean kind of guy. His name is Viago.
Right. So we open with Viago, and he's just the cutest, sweetest one.
He is. He's adorable.
So he's in charge of waking up everybody, and run with that. He's waking everybody up.
Yeah. So Viago is 379 years old. So he goes around and he wakes everybody up. And the first person he wakes up is Deacon. And he's the young bad boy they describe him as.
and by young, 183.
Yeah. 183. And I thought it was so funny when he was like describing himself and he was saying like, now that I'm vampire. Vampire's very sexy. And he's like got his leather pants on, and he's like got his leg draped over the thing.
And he's so the unsexiest.
Yeah, he's the unsexiest one, of course.
But he's dressed like a today rock star.
Yeah, he's
like an aging rock star.
He's got pleather pants on.
Aging rock star. Yeah. That's the word.
A perfect description of him with his like feathery, like
flowy tops,
floofy, like blouse on or whatever. He was a Nazi vampire.
Right. He tells the history. He tells the history of how he became a vampire.
Right. Peter turned him.
Right. Peter. So I think Peter is the one that turned all of them because Peter is how old?
8,000 years old.
Okay, so he's Nosferatu.
He is the vampire that would resemble like the Dracula that you would see in like the 1920s.
Nosferatu.
Is that what his name?
She's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I thought it was
you never saw that?
No. As soon as Danny saw him, she was like, "Oh, that's Nosferatu."
No, I didn't.
As soon
but
as
yeah,
she saw
he's
him.
got the bald head and the scary teeth and the whatever. But then which he doesn't really talk through the movie, but he does interact with them, and he's like sweet and nice. It's really funny.
He's the obviously the oldest roommate. He's the fourth roommate, so there's four of them. And
it was really funny when Viago was waking him up and he was like
yeah. Well, because Viago's like, hey, I'm going to bring down a broom so you can clean up your bones.
Yeah.
Because he's stepping all over spinal columns.
Oh, spinal column, good.
But you can tell that Viago
brought him the chicken.
Yeah.
Right. That Viago's like really scared of him.
He was scared of
bother
him, yeah.
So Viago goes around waking everybody up. And the one guy, Vladislav, he is like Vlad the Impaler.
Right. That's what I wrote that down.
What was the real name? Because it wasn't Vlad the Impaler.
The Poker.
The Poker.
The Poker. Vladimir the Poker.
And like when he says poker, he's like, the polka. Like, makes this like gross face.
But his thing is when he gets woken up and he's having an orgy and he's like, oh my bad, and he closes the door on him and then he comes to the door and he's like, we're gonna have a flat meeting in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like 30. And what's his name? Vladimir?
Vladislav.
No, the other one.
Oh, Viago.
Viago is like, okay. Viago's such a pushover.
He's so sweet. He's really, really sweet. Vladislav is 862 years old. So then he was saying, when they were describing him, that he's like the older one. He's more distinguished. And he's like, yeah, I used to like to really torture people. And he's got this like,
I was in a bad place when I did that.
He's got this gross like chair like sitting there with like leather things coming off of it. It's just really funny.
And he was like, I was in a really bad place when I used to do this.
I thought, so did you have a favorite?
Oh my God. I don't, because my least favorite was probably Peter.
Okay.
Because they don't show him that much, except for if you look in the film, they have like all these pictures of them throughout the years, and how much younger they were, and like,
well, they were like my favorite picture when they were going through when they were all leaning against the car and they had like 70s outfits, but Peter was still in his like long black robes. I thought it was so funny.
But he was like slightly younger and happier, like less bitter with life.
See, I liked Peter.
I thought he was sweet and funny,
but he's silent. It was hard to give him a personality based on that.
I felt his personality all the way through. That's I don't know why, but I kind of got it.
Yeah, he was like subtly funny. Like you really had to be paying attention to his character because he just was like when Deacon was explaining how he turned and he was like, I walked past this creepy castle and I was like, wow, that's a creepy castle. And then the guy turns him and he's like, and that was Peter. And then he turns and there's Peter sitting there with his like, legs crossed. Like, I just thought it was so quietly funny. Like he was like this quietly funny character that you just weren't expecting. We're going to compare this to The Office with a dry sense of humor. I would say Stanley was so fucking funny in The Office, but quietly in the background. Like, Stanley was not a main character. He didn't really have like a huge story, but when he had something to say, it was fucking hilarious.
Right.
Like when Stanley would be like, it's pretzel day. I get myself pretzel today. Yeah. So fucking stupid because like I know when I'm at work, if like someone brings food in, I'm like, it brings me so much joy. I'm like, fuck yes. Someone brought in pumpkin rolls the other day. I'm like, fucking pumpkin rolls. Or someone brought in like a pretzel tray. I'm like fucking here for it. I just love it so much. Like,
I have the actual opposite reaction when people bring food to work.
I try to get it when no one's looking and take it to my room and squirrel it away and eat it so no one knows I took food. Anyway, so Peter was your favorite character, you think?
I liked him.
Okay.
I liked, the first one.
Viago. He was probably my favorite character.
It was between him. I like Peter a lot.
Yeah.
I think he would probably be my second favorite.
I thought Viago was really, really funny. Deacon was probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was going to like him. I thought he was funny, but like that machismo, I'm not here for that. So like with his like...
Was he machismo?
Well, he was just like kind of like trying to fight everybody the whole time.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
because was funny, he was like young.
Like, yeah, he's like, I'm the young guy, and then they turn the other, which we'll get into Nick in a minute. But yeah, I thought the Vladislav.
Just call him Vlad.
Yeah, Vlad. I thought he, like, them doing the Vlad the Impaler off of him was, like, smart and very funny. Yeah, really, really funny. It was like, I'm Vlad the Poker.
I thought that was so cute.
So have you guys ever had roommates? Have you ever had to live with a roommate?
Yeah.
No.
Have you?
Yes.
Like, somebody that wasn't your family or...
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Like a college thing?
I left home and when I was like 21.
Okay.
And
I never
lived with roommates.
I never lived with a roommate like that wasn't my partner or my family. You know, I never had to like live with strangers. I think that's like a super character building thing that I didn't ever get to do.
Oh, it builds some character.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
I think absolutely.
Well, when I got no character because I never had roommates.
Yeah, me neither.
So the whole documentary is these 4 men, vampires, that live in New Zealand.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys found this anywhere, but the New Zealand tourism. Okay, they partnered with these films.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so...
Why? Because they don't really like show New Zealand in any type of light. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Right, they really don't. It's all in the dark and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like dark and they go to like weird little...
Apparently, when it was a Kickstarter, they must have kicked some money in.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the guys all have powers.
Right.
Levitation, transforming into animals and mind control.
Right.
When the fucking Vlad... couldn't transform properly because, you know, in his old age, he's gotten worse and worse at transforming.
Yeah.
He can't get the face right. I laughed so fucking hard.
When he turned into the cat, but he still had his human face.
I thought that was so fucking
See, that was one of the things I, like, missed in the beginning. Because when I watched it the second time, I'm like, oh my God, his fucking face is still a human face with the goatee.
And see, I thought that he stopped, not because of age. I thought it had to do with the beast.
Yeah, I think it had to do with the beast.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The beast broke the beast broke his spirit. And it was so funny, like, the whole, you know, they showed the tarot cards of the beast with the, like, demon spawn, and then you find out who the beast really is.
And then it looked like it had dick and balls, and then you're like, hold up
on
at the very end. Yeah.
They use a lot of old-timey art.
Yes.
Art pieces to go back and forth.
I thought that was so smart.
Yeah.
I thought it was really smart.
Like a lot of cutaways in that. So the crew follows them, and each night, Viago, Vladislav, and Deacon, because Peter always stays behind.
Yeah, Peter doesn't need to.
They take the bus into town, and they go around and they prowl the streets for people to kill.
Before they get on the bus, they're getting dressed, but they can't see their reflections.
Oh my God. That part was so fucking funny.
So they're getting dressed and they can't see their reflections, so they're like doodling pictures of each other.
Yes.
Like, and they're like stick figure pictures. They're like, you look so good. And they're like, he's putting on like army pants with like a fluffy jacket. And they just look so insane.
But like how Deacon would look at his picture that somebody else drew of him and he'd be like, no, I have to change.
And when
such funny, witty humor.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, you don't, well, how does a vampire see himself if he doesn't have a reflection?
It seemed like their biggest issue was that they couldn't see themselves.
Right.
Like, Viago was like, you know, sometimes you kill a man and you think, oh, what nice pants he has. I gotta take them in. I just thought it was so funny the way they did that. Also, when they were getting dressed, and I'm not sure, I think it might have been Deacon who was in the mirror with the cup, and he was like...
No, it was
Viago also. Yeah, because he was like, it's a floating cup. And I'm like, of course, that's the first thing you would do if you were invisible, is like pick something up and make it float. It's just,
and be like, ooh, it's a ghost cup.
I just thought that was so funny and cute.
Yeah.
I just found it like, dudes, you're still wearing clothes from like 300 years ago.
Right.
You see what everybody else is wearing.
Right.
Get a clue.
So them on the bus with their like crazy clothes and their float, like his big fluffy thing. I laughed so hard at them sitting in the back of the bus with all the normal people like.
Yeah,
just riding the bus to go.
And it feels like very much normal people that were just caught in this regular mockumentary. People.
Yeah, right.
In the very beginning, they also talk about how they each came to the country.
Right.
How they each came to New Zealand.
Right.
And Peter, you don't hear about Peter's coming, right? How he ended up in New Zealand.
No, I'm not sure how Peter got there.
How, not Vlad, Viago. How Viago ended up in New Zealand brings the story full circle.
Right.
Because Viago ended up in New Zealand because he was in love with this woman named Catherine.
Right.
And she was a young girl at the time, and he was a human girl, and he was a vampire. Which I found very confusing because I thought he was a human person and then became a vampire.
Yeah, no. And, he was already like hundreds of years old at this point.
Right. And so he falls in love with her and he has his familiar, which is the
human equivalent of a
servant, like a personal servant, which to whom the vampires promise someday biting them and turning them into vampires. But really they just string them along. So He puts the wrong postage on his coffin, and it ends up taking 18 months. And so in that time, young Catherine falls in love, marries, and moves on with her life. Right. And he's a good guy, so he lets her live. But he still, from afar, follows her and...
For like 70 years, he follows her.
Right.
Because now she's like an old woman.
Right. And the locket, when he tries to wear it, and it starts to burn into his chest.
She gave me a silver locket, and I put her picture in there, and he's so like...
But how smart is it that he's wearing gloves, and he can't handle it, but then he tries for the love of her.
I felt like that was like an S&M thing that he like put it on and was like... making himself cry over it.
But his smoke is coming out. Now, I was watching it with Russ and his kids. Lovely. And the kids thought it was so... Because it's not really like...
No, it's not. It's not scary.
There's some scenes that are like a little questionable. Yeah. And some things that are said that are a little questionable. But it's
and probably went right straight over their heads anyway,
Yeah.
So they're on the bus. They're going to the city to try to get into a bar. And of course, they can't get into any bars because they have to be asked permission. They have to be invited in, and they can't get into any bars because he's like, just go in. And he's like, well, just invite me in. He's like, just fucking go in. What is your problem? That was so funny.
So they walk into the diviest place.
Yeah.
But did you guys see that before they even go to the thing, they're seeing other vampires that live in the city.
They met little girl vampires that were going to kill pedophiles.
Well, no, they met a sex worker.
Yeah.
A sex worker one that was draining her John all night. Mm-hmm. And
I was a hungry girl.
Yeah. And then there's this like John like just like falling over because he's like completely drained of blood. And then they come across the little kids and they're like, are you on your way to get some pedophiles? And they're like, yes.
I thought that was that was another thing that I wrote that down because I'm like, that's actually such a smart thing to do. Like, you know, you're almost like a vigilante vampire.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. I thought that was a very smart like way to portray the kid vampires.
I think it was Vlad, when he says that he got transformed at 16 and that's why he looks 16 like forever. 60. He does not.
He's like, back when I got turned, being 16 was difficult on me.
I know.
That was real.
He looks like he's difficult. In his late 40s.
Yeah, he does.
Oh my god. So the little kids are, you know, sucking people's blood. Right. And stuff,
oh my god. There was that one scene where you could see them like attacking the one guy. One jumps on him from up high and then and they take him down. That was
the killing scenes I thought were very funny in that they were so campy and like the blood squirting everywhere was like so not realistic.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that aspect of it made it even more funny because it wasn't like they were really trying to make it
or in
like
the
a horror movie.
Or in the beginning when the whole meeting, I forgot to mention, the whole meeting, the whole point of the meeting in that morning was that Deacon wasn't pulling his weight.
Right,
and it had been 5 years since he last did the dishes. And
right.
Vlad says to Deacon, it's embarrassing when I bring people over here. And Deacon is like, why do you care? You just come bringing them over to kill them.
Right.
You know? And
vampires don't wash dishes.
Right. And then and then they cut over to him washing the dishes and he's like, this is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when they were going back and forth trying to figure out who was going to wash the dishes or whatever, and they went and got into the fight, and they both like popped up in the air and levitated, went at each other. And I'm like, it was so campy and cheesy. Like it made it.
Right.
It made it funny and fun. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to talk about Viago saying, put newspapers down, cover up. It can be done. They're like, how do you do that?
He said no serious vampire puts down a towel.
No, but of course, fast forward, and there he is. He's having this conversation with one of his victims, and he's putting down the newspaper and putting down stuff. And when he goes for it, it's just spewing He's like, everywhere.
I hit a vein.
And he does that a couple times. And
then he looks so upset and torn up because of the mess, not because he took down, he killed the victim.
Well, he's saying to the girl, like, she's like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go see the world. And he does look like, oh, I'm about to kill you. That's really sad that you think those things are going to happen.
Right. That's so funny because it kind of like did that comedic timing thing where you think he's not going to kill her.
Right.
Because of the way but he does. And he does so in such a way.
It's such a weird, when they called him a dandy man, like that was he just took her hair. He's like, and it looks like he's going to kiss her neck. And he like pulls it away and he just bites her fucking neck. And she looks so shocked and insane. It's just, I thought that was so funny.
So, yeah. But it's not in like a scary way. No. But like, I love how you say that it was campy, but campy in a way that could still be kind of realistic and awkward. Like awkward life.
Awkward,
like daily awkward life.
Awkward is a very good way to put it. It doesn't feel like it's trying to really take itself so seriously.
Exactly.
Like it's put together in such a way that you can tell it was very serious with the music and with the pictures and with the cutaway scenes and the way they really like played the characters up. But then they do those little things of making the blood squirt all over the place or having these just like goofy little scenes, and you're like, no, this is actually fucking hilarious.
But real life goofy.
Right.
Where like if you were being followed, if the three of us were living together and a documentary crew came, those would be very realistic things that we would be having. Right. Arguing over who's doing the dishes, who's not pulling their weight.
All the shit that we would cut out of the podcast because it doesn't,
Trying to get into a club, things like that.
What are we gonna wear? Right.
Exactly. So it was. I found this movie very, very entertaining.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the familiar, which is this girl,
familiar.
Jackie,
right?
Who is single mom, I want to say.
No,
they
she
don't
had a
really
husband.
address
it. She has a husband.
They definitely addressed it.
At the end,
and I loved it.
Yeah,
it. It was in the credits.
Well, wait until the end. Wait until the end. We'll talk about that.
I didn't see that part.
Yeah, if you think you didn't watch you had to watch the credits.
I didn't watch after the credits. Okay, so
she's a mom and she's doing all Deacon's dirty work. She brings them victims. She cleans up the blood. She takes their clothes to the dryer, the dry cleaner. She's like, oh,
she maintains the house, the outside.
My husband is a hemophiliac. That's why there's blood all over these clothes.
The dry cleaner. Yeah. And like, granted, it's like very old timey clothes.
Yeah, it's like these like 300-year-old clothes. But okay, go ahead.
I love how she like looks at the camera when she says that.
Yeah,
like she gives it a knowing look.
Yeah. I thought that was so funny.
I know. Jackie herself is a very plain-looking woman.
So, and Jackie is doing all this as the familiar to eventually become a vampire as well. She wants to be bitten
now, on the show, in the actual sitcom, which I highly recommend because it's so freaking funny, in the sitcom, the familiar is a gay man. And he is so fucking funny.
Really?
Oh my God. He is what makes the sitcom.
Really?
Yes. He is what makes the sitcom. I wish I would have got
to see him.
Yeah. And there's another, so Peter in the sitcom, Peter is not actually, he's not there anymore because, he burnt up.
Yeah.
But they have a different type of vampire.
Okay.
So one of their roommates is this older man who works in an office, and he's an energy vampire. He feeds off of people's energies.
Yeah.
So he goes up to people's cubicles and he's like, oh, you wore that today? And he'd be like, did you hear? They're going to cut back. And like anytime he goes to a cubicle, he drains the room of the like happiness and the energy by bitching and complaining.
This is a thing in massage. So if we have a guest who is a shithead, like sometimes you'll have a guest that will come into your, you'll be in a great mood and you have a guest. Sometimes it won't say anything to you, but they just drain all of your life force out of your body. And you come out of the massage and you're like, what just happened to me in that hour?
Yeah.
It's 100%, like we call them like energy vampires.
Super negative people. And that's what this guy is. He doesn't kill anybody, but he's the most powerful vampire there. Because he just is such a Debbie Downer. And so the others don't want to hang out with him.
Right.
And they like avoid him and stuff like that because he could literally kill one of them from his energy sucking. And he can be around during the day.
Oh, shit.
So it adds a different thing. And also, I think Vladimir is the one that is together with the Beast in the thing.
Yeah, that
and
happens
she's part of the show, too. I highly recommend the show. It's really, really good.
So, what do you think about Deacon and how he treats Jackie?
Oh, it's shitty.
He's so shitty to her.
He's so shitty to
But it's almost like a celebrity who has an assistant.
Right.
That kind of situation, yeah.
So we find out a little bit later that you already mentioned this, but Viago had a familiar, and he's the one who sent him to New Zealand, and he was waiting to be turned into a vampire as well. Mm-hmm. So, like, did you kind of, like, get the assumption that this is what they do to just get somebody to do all their bidding for them, but then never turn them into a vampire?
Yeah, but with Viago's case, let's pick that up later because I thought that was so fucking funny.
Yeah, that was really funny.
I think a lot of it is because they can't do stuff during the day. So if they turn their familiar,
then they lose their familiar.
Then they lose their familiar and have to build somebody else in, and then who's gonna do the stuff that they need to be done? That needs to be done during the day.
True.
Right. Which is so freaking. Think about it. Who need they do chores? Need them. They need chores. You know.
So Deacon's familiar sets up a dinner party of victims, and that's where we meet Nick.
But Deacon makes the unrealistic expectation of they have to be virgins.
Hilarious. And then this other woman...
but Jackie, before she brings anybody, she's like, well, I don't bring people that I'm actually close to. I bring people that I, you know. So she brings her ex-boyfriend, Nick.
From when she was 12.
Right, from when she was 12. And a girl that she went to college with who...
Made fun of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we meet Nick, and Nick has, like, got a tattoo on his neck, and he's, like, just, like, a grungy looking...
He's still, like, wearing a Letterman's jacket and
millennial,
shit.
Yeah, right. He's like, are you a virgin? He's like, no, I'm not a virgin. Jackie's like, he was a virgin when I knew him. She's like, yeah, when I was 12. What are you talking about? So I thought it was...
And the other girl, she was like, but surely she's a virgin.
Yeah, she looks like a virgin.
Like, no, I'm not a virgin. She's like, well, I totally had her pegged for a virgin. And the lady with the other girl was just like a really plain looking...
Yeah, like, they're like flannel shirt on or whatever.
Yeah.
So they feed them biscotti. And I fucking cried laughing when he said biscotti. Why don't you eat your biscotti? Have a bite of the biscotti.
And it's not just this that they brought him biscotti.
Yeah.
It's that they crack open the cans and just pour it onto their plate.
On their plate. I thought SpaghettiOs was like a weird American thing. I didn't think that was like something that...
It's probably some different brand.
Oh, okay.
But the part where he says he does the mind control and he says, you're eating worms now. And he was like, oh, we got that from the Lost Boys.
That was so fucking funny. Why don't you have a bite of your biscotti? It's worms. Just so cute and funny.
It was just silly.
So Nick goes to get up and he's like,
I'm done with this. And,
fuck out of here. You try to make me eat worms. And he's trying to leave and he realizes he's locked in the house. I thought it was so fucking funny when Vlad, they're chasing them and Vlad is inside his backpack when he like turns around and it's just his face in the backpack when he opens it up.
But Nick handled himself very well because I would have been like screaming, high-pitched screaming throughout that house. So Nick tries to escape. He can't. Finally, everybody's trying to get a piece of him.
Yeah.
They can't. Finally, Peter grabs him and makes him a snack in the driveway.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, man, Peter got to him. So we don't hear another thing about Nick.
Right.
And the show continues. And then 2 months later, we have Nick, who comes to the window. He's a vampire. And now the dynamic of the group is that we have this new vampire who is with the times.
Right.
And he doesn't understand the code, the vampire code, where you can't let people into the group.
Right. Well, not only that, but he, like, doesn't have control of his powers yet, so he's, like, trying to fly into the window, and he can't get in there, like, just fucking use the door.
I know. And Nick is, like, really obnoxious.
Yeah, he's a douche, yeah. He's, like, kind of a douche, and I think it's funny how,
And he's like, I love how he keeps telling everybody that he's like, you know, the guy from Twilight, you know, the head guy.
I'm Twilight. I'm Twilight.
Yeah.
But
I'm Twilight.
I think it's funny how Deacon, who's essentially the young bad boy of the group, is so jealous of Nick.
Yes.
It's like the whole dynamic of them is, you know, he's so jealous of me, wants to fight him the whole time.
And then Nick just wears a jacket that looks just like Deacon's.
I know. It's like that little brother.
Way better.
Well, yeah.
But it's like that little brother, you know, where the little brother wants to be like the older brother,
right.
and Deacon doesn't appreciate him.
Right.
Then they had to hold a meeting, and they're like, well, he doesn't appreciate that you're wearing the same jacket as him.
He's like, but I guess it's not really a rule, so I can't count that against you.
Right. I just thought that was so funny. Nick brings in a human friend named Stu.
And everyone loves Stu.
Who's a computer analyst and the most boring guy.
Yeah.
But he's the one that basically infiltrates the group. At first, he doesn't know that
they're vampires.
That Nick is a vampire and that, you know, because they have that mind control thing. But then they break it to him and he seems to take it pretty well.
I thought the way that they did that, the reason I brought you here.
Yeah, it's like an intervention.
A Jerry Springer thing or something. Like, the reason I brought you here is I wanted to tell you I'm a vampire. And he like perfectly takes it fine and he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm still your friend. It's like his coming out story.
That's what I took it as. Like he was doing a coming out story.
Exactly.
Right. I thought that was so great.
And he was like, I'm not going to eat you, even though I feel like going, and just...
And it was really, really cute how he showed them the internet, and they were like, he's like, I lost a sweater in 1929. Can you Google that for me?
Google it. Google it. Like, you know, when old people are just learning how to, and they're like, do this, and you're like, you can't. Like, that's not how that works. But how they were going through, what was it? Virgins. They were looking up virgins, and they were like, that girl's not a virgin. She wouldn't be doing that.
That's so funny. I don't think she'd be a virgin if she knew how to do that.
Yeah, that was so funny when they were learning how to do that. So through learning how to use the internet, Viago locates Catherine.
Right.
Who is now 96-year-old.
Right. And she's living in a retirement village. Right.
He starts going to visit her and stuff like that. And Nick is also able to get his friends, his new, his vampire friend, into the clubs. Right. That they weren't able to get into
I know
before.
the bouncer there. Yeah. I can get in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was cute. But he's still really struggling to adapt. And that's the part that, like, I found so fucking funny when his friend Stu was eating fries and he grabs a fry and the guys are like, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yep. And then he proceeds to puke up blood for like 2 hours. It's just like so much blood. And he's like, chips are my favorite. I can't believe I can't eat chips. They're my favorite.
He's like, I'm over this. I'm over being a vampire. Just because, the fries weren't, they call it chips, but the fries weren't, he can't eat regular food
anymore,
Right. So then throughout this whole night, this scene, he's telling everybody that he's a vampire.
Right.
And it's like Street Folks. So that's what gave it like a very realistic vampire, like documentary thing, because it looks like real people.
Yeah, they look like just people off the street, yeah.
So he tells the one guy, he's like, I'm a vampire. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, and I'm a vampire hunter.
Right.
But that comes back.
Right.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the way he's going around talking to everybody and being like, I'm a vampire. I'm from Twilight. You know the main one from Twilight? That's me. I'm from Twilight. And like, how many times have you been in a bar and met like a douchey person that just thinks they're the shit? And they're just like, he's almost like somebody who just turned 21. It's like his first time in the bar, which is kind of the correlation of him being a new vampire as well. It's like, but look at me, I'm so fucking cool and I'm so whatever. And he's totally bites them all in the ass.
So because of this, Nick goes around and tells everybody that he's a vampire. Right. So this opens them up to an attack.
Right.
One of the vampire hunters breaks a window in the basement where Peter lives.
Right.
And lets the sunlight in, and
so Peter kills the vampire hunter by knocking the coffin lid on top of him.
But by mistake, he just came out.
Right.
And it just crushed the guy.
Right.
And then he gets exposed to the light and Peter dies.
Right. So the death is fucking horrible.
Oh my God. Well, it was funny because Vlad comes to the cameras like in a very realistic way. He's like, shut those off. Can't you see we just lost a friend to a sunlight accident?
Well, just before that, when he went to get the water,
he's got like a tiny pot of water and it's like splashing everywhere. Mind you, the blaze of him burning in the sunlight is this humongous blaze, and he's like running around screaming, and he tries to throw the tiniest pot of water on him. Yeah, and then so he's, they find out that it's Nick's fault. And he's like, oh, I know that guy. He said he was a vampire hunter. And they're like, what the fuck? This is why you can't tell people you're a vampire.
Right.
And so they hold this big meeting and they're going to kick him out. And he's...
Right, and he's banned, right? Essentially banned from being at the apartment.
You're banned indefinitely. And he's like, how long is that? And he's like...
Indefinite. So they go into this, like, long argument about what indefinitely means. Right. But, like, definitely means, like, definitely for sure. Right. But indefinitely means that there's some time. Right. So they just keep going back and forth. And I'm like, it had me fucking questioning it.
Right. Well, that's like the play, like a
play on words.
Like a little play on words. And you're like, wait, have we been using indefinitely wrong this whole time? Right.
So it was really done smartly.
Yeah.
And so Nick is pissed off. The police are called in by the neighbors because of all the screaming and everything that was happening.
The fire and the smoke.
Right, because a fight breaks out between Deacon and Nick.
Right. So Deacon has been wanting to fight him already. And we actually skipped over the part when they first confront him and they're telling him, don't tell people that you're a vampire. And they have a bat fight in the street.
Oh, yeah.
And they both turn into bats and the other guy's like, bat fight, bat fight. So they had already had a ton of tension between Nick and Deacon. And I think everybody really loved Peter, and he was their... I don't know if he's like their dad or something.
He was their maker, I think.
So everybody was really upset that Peter died, and when it came back that it was indirectly Nick's fault that he was killed, they have another fight, so the police get called because there's screeching and there's smoke, and the police come, and it's fucking perfectly done, like what the police would do in a documentary. Right. And they like interview the police, and the police are like kind of nerdy, and they're like saying why they're here, and it almost looked like a Cops episode.
Yes. And so they brainwash them. They do that little mind control thing, and
But he says he's not that good at it, so it could turn off at any moment.
Right. So they're like, so each time, that scene was so fucking funny, because each time they would point out something that you're like, oh shit, they found out there's a body there. But just behind the body, there's a can of paint. And they're like, see, this is why this is dangerous.
This is a fire hazard.
Right. But they're not seeing the dead body there. And I just thought that was done so smartly.
Everybody's, the two that were in the middle of the fight are levitating, and the other guy's like holding him down, and he's like, what's happening here? There's no smoke detector like right above him.
So they can't like really see what's happening.
The hypnosis that they had done on him was like, you won't see anything odd here.
Right.
So they're walking around and they think that it's happening. So the whole time you're right, you think that it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Right, because they keep hinting to it, but it's just, it's such campy humor in that they're just not seeing it.
Right.
So, but it's so funny. And the whole time he's like so nervous in the background, like because he's thinking that the spell wore off,
right.
After that happens, they cut away to the actual reason for the documentary, which was the ball.
Right. So we finally get to the
unholy masquerade.
Right.
And they're all getting ready, and there is their zombies and witches and stuff like that. And Vlad goes through like this thing where he doesn't want to go.
Right, because he thinks that he's going to be...
The Beast is the guest of honor, and he thought he was the guest of honor.
He thought he was going to be the guest of honor, and they find out it's the Beast.
Right.
And so at this point, we still don't know who the Beast is. But we know that it's Vlad's like...
Oh, but he makes it sound so horrible.
Right.
Like, throughout the whole thing, they make it sound like...
the Beast on this mountain. I fought the Beast on this thing. Yeah.
And it's actually his ex-girlfriend. Right. Pauline. She even has like a really normal name.
The fact that he stopped eating and was looking like he was turning into a beast himself.
Yeah, it was so hilarious.
And they were all worried about him, and he was just so sulking and like
because he thought he was the one, and it was the Beast. That's the worst case scenario,
right?
Was it on the way to the ball? I think we skipped another thing. Was that was their altercation with the wolf, with the werewolf?
That was on
the same night. That was
the first night when they were first going out to the bar, right? Because Nick was still with them.
To say that.
But it's just this like weird little altercation with this.
So the vampire group is walking past this like Bayside Park or whatever.
Right.
There's ocean on the other side, right? So they're passing by, and they pass by another group of males,
a pack of werewolves,
and it's a pack of werewolves, which were the nicest, kindest werewolves. They were so polite.
He's like, what was he saying about cursing?
And there's clear tension between those two groups.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Twilight, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. I never made that connection. So they're passing by, and they're like, I can smell you from here. And they're like, oh, where you guys going to sniff each other's butts? And the one werewolf guy was like, well, we just do that as a greeting.
He's like, we don't sniff our own butts. We sniff each other's butts.
And that's a greeting. And I just thought that part was so fucking funny because the stereotypes of what you would think.
They were like the sweetest
confirming
ones.
them, but they were so sweet.
And they were also saying, he was saying like, stop cursing. We don't have to curse. Like, keep your, voice down. And he was just really trying to keep them like to be these polite little, I guess, puppy dogs and not really like.
Yeah.
But anyway,
like these vicious guys.
Like you said, they don't go to the masquerade ball, but I didn't understand why. I was wondering why the werewolves, but that makes sense that they're not technically undead, right?
Right. So clearly that's the first time that you see that there's tension between the two werewolf with the werewolf group and the vampire group. So it's like a rival gang. So Nick once again makes a mistake of using his +1 to invite his friend Stu, who's a human.
Everyone loves Stu, right?
Everybody loves Stu, but he's now he's brought him to the undead, unholy masquerade.
We also see at this point in the masquerade that Nick has turned Jackie, which is Deacon's familiar.
Right.
So he's all pissed off because now he doesn't have his servant, and she's fucking killing it at the masquerade ball.
Yes,
like, she's just living her best.
Yeah.
Just doing her fucking thing. But Stu is there, and everybody's like, even the other vampires are like loving on Stu, right?
But I just remembered something. Remember when Deacon went to Jackie's house to ask her a favor or something? Her kids were at the door and she was like, don't look at the man. Don't look at the man. I thought that was so fucking funny because it felt so realistic that a mom would do that. Like, keep her family away from this thing that she was doing.
And when he leaves, and she turns around, she's like, would you guys just go to bed? Like, the way she talks to them was so genuinely like a mom would talk to their kids,
And so the familiar, so she's like, are you ever going to turn me? And he's like, well, now I have to punish you because Nick's been turned, so he took your place. Right. So now she's like, oh, so you're going to fall through on your promise. Right. Because she's like very worried that she's going to get older. Right. And she doesn't want to be stuck at that age.
Exactly, yeah.
So that brings me to...
Nick has turned her.
No, the dandy, what's his name?
Viago.
Viago's familiar. Right. When he locates Catherine via internet, he also FaceTimes his familiar.
Right. Who's 90 now. Who's 90 years old.
Right. And he's like, oh, I feel like I did nothing with my life. Why didn't you ever turn me into a vampire?
He's like, I've been waiting all these years.
Okay, bye. But he's like, oh, you still look the same. And he's, I thought that part was so
But you're right.
Fun.
He didn't. I get that he didn't turn him because he put the postage wrong and he was mad at him, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I guess my point was like...
But passive-aggressively mad at him.
Right. Yeah. Because he was like too sweet. Mm-hmm. But I think my point was like, I think they just use them as servants.
Obviously,
to not, it was just
but how he was like, okay, bye.
Right. So they're at the ball. Stu is living his best life. Jackie is living her best life. And the beast, we find out, is Vlad's ex-girlfriend. Right. So she is talking to Stu, and she's like, why are your hands
she shakes
so
his
warm?
Hand, right.
Yeah, and why are you so like... So they're saying, what do you do? He's saying, I'm a computer analyst. And they're like, I know a virgin when I see one.
And so it gets everybody riled up.
Right, they all want to kill him.
They all want to eat him.
Well, the zombie was staring Stu down as well and recognized it.
Right.
Right.
So they try to help him. So they try to get him out of there, right?
Right.
And then they run into the...
Well, wait. Vlad comes in.
Oh, that's right. Vlad makes his,
like... Yeah, like all in his full white suit with his masquerade mask.
And a fur coat.
Yeah, he looks so dapper, but like ridiculous at the same time.
Right.
He's like, it's your ex. And he's like, Michael or somebody else?
Yeah, and she's like hopeful that it's somebody else.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, it's the asshole.
But he makes that grand entrance. He takes the mask off and he
can't get it off, and he's like fiddling with it in the back.
Then he gets into the fight with her current lover.
Right.
And they get into this big old brawl.
Right.
And Stu comes for the rescue.
Yeah, and Stu kills the guy, impales him with this whole big long... stake, which is, when that happened, I thought all hell was going to break loose because a human then killed a vampire.
No, a zombie.
Oh, he was a zombie. Okay.
Yeah.
A human killed one of them. So, of course, they're all going to freak the fuck out, but, like, somehow they all get out of there. And that's when they meet up with all the werewolves on the road.
Right.
When they're walking back.
Right. There's this big brawl between them. Freaking Stu is mauled.
Right.
And, they were just like so sad.
So Deacon goes to have a talk with Nick because Nick is really upset that. But
did you see that the cameraman also gets ripped in half?
No, I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that. Yeah. So Deacon is sitting on the side of a hill in this like dramatic situation where Nick is just really depressed that his best friend gets killed.
Right.
Deacon is trying to make him feel better, and he's like, your friends are going to get really old and they're going to piss themselves and it's going to be really sad.
Right.
And your friends are going to sometimes they're going to die. Sometimes they're going to get covered by leaves and their windpipe is going to get, and he's saying all these like horrible ways all his friends have died. And then he's like, so I hope I made you feel better.
And then also talking about how his guts were everywhere. Yeah, right. And
I think he would have wanted to be killed by werewolves and have his entrails ripped out. Like, you're looking at him like, bro, stop talking.
Oh my God.
The cops from earlier show up at the fight and they're putting, Stu in the ambulance, and they're saying, and once a month they keep killing someone, these packs of dogs, and they bring this like adorable, cute little dog. And he's like, and now this dog has to be put down because
And the dog is like the sweetest thing.
Little fluffy, cute dog. He looks like the dog from the YouTube videos that went viral where the one dog would hug the other one.
Yes.
He looks exactly like that dog. It might even be that dog or something because he was like a famous looking dog. And they're like
a famous looking dog.
Well, like sometimes when those dogs go viral, they get to like they get acting jobs and shit. That he looked just like that one dog.
Okay.
But anyway, they're like, we're gonna have to put this vicious dog down. He like, looks at the camera all cute with his like tail wagging.
During that time frame after that happened to Stu, I think I remember a portion where they were all kind of sad that Stu was no longer around. I think they were kind of sad. Weren't they just clicking on the computer?
Yeah,
just,
right.
Like depressed.
Right. Deacon falls asleep at the computer and Viago's like, you can't fall asleep here. The sun is about to come up. And he like puts him to bed in his closet. Yeah, they're all like, Peter gets killed and Stu gets killed, and they show that shot of them all. It's like a portrait of them all. And I was thinking, damn, 2 of them are dead from that portrait. Yeah.
Right. Nick calls them and leaves them a voice message that, a surprise that's going to blow them away.
Right.
So he shows up at the house with Stu. And so Deacon answers the door, and I'm getting this all from wikipedia.org. You guys can look it up, the plot, if you're interested in watching So he answers, and everybody's like so surprised that he's there, and they're all hugging him and everything, but there's scars, and they're on his face
is all ripped up.
Yeah. And they realize that he's been transformed into a
werewolf. Their nemesis.
They were sniffing him.
But they love Stu so much that Stu essentially brings the vampire and the
werewolves
together.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because they're like, at first it's almost like if you were taking 2 rival gangs or like 2 races, that one race has a predetermined notions of what this race is going to be like, but when they meet each other, they're like, oh, they're nothing like how I thought. Because they were like, I thought they were just going to urinate all over everything.
Well, they were like, we had to get over the smell of the dog.
They had to open the windows.
It's like, we got over it. And even the werewolves were like, wow, this is actually a really nice place you got here, as they're like walking around, which it's not. It's disgusting.
Right. So they actually become friends, and you kind of get the feeling that they will be together and hang out and have dinner and stuff like that.
And we find out here that Viago has turned Catherine, who's 90 years old,
into which was so fucking cute. That little old lady is the cutest.
She was so great, and she's like, "Yeah, I love being a vampire."
Yep, and then he was like, "I don't care if people talk about the age difference." Is that what you were going to say?
That's what I was going to say.
But then you think the age difference, because he looks so much younger than her.
Right.
But he's like, "I don't care if they think I'm a cradle robber."
A cradle robber.
I thought that was
She's
so
like all
freaking
wrinkly
funny.
as shit.
I know, but he is essentially older than she is,
Right.
And he was just so happy and like so like proud of his woman.
He's got like this goofy, cute little like face, and he's like holding her hand. And I was actually shocked that that's where they ended it.
Right, with him and her.
Right.
They do have at the end of after the credits, they do have scenes where Vlad is back with Pauline, where they're back together.
They did have that.
Right.
Jackie has made her husband her familiar.
Right. So that's what Cindy was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
That shit was so funny. I wish you would have watched after the credits.
She came across as a total dominatrix.
Yes.
Control. Like, she's you're like going to command. She was in command.
Right.
Of that.
She's like, you understand, you're my familiar. I'm your master. And she's like making him like make a list of all things she wants him to do around the house. And he looks like he's perfectly into it, you know?
But she took the part. She ran with it.
Yeah.
I mean, she looked fantastic.
Obviously, the post-credit scene where Deacon tries to hypnotize the audience into forgetting what they've seen.
I didn't see that part. Did you see that?
I think it must have cut off before then.
Oh, okay, because of Amazon.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
Yeah, I didn't see that part. That makes the whole thing, like, that makes the whole thing, like, brings it full circle.
Right, yeah.
It's so good. It's really, really good. Cause
it was really well done.
I was afraid, like, as we were watching it, I'm like, ooh, how are we gonna, like, really talk about this? But I really, really did like it a lot. So I'm glad that I got to watch this, because I'd never heard of this. I would have never, like, thought to watch it. So tell me about the show.
The show it's got the same premise. It almost feels like Friends, but vampires.
Okay.
It has a lot of cutaway scenes of the nighttime when you deal with the regular vampires, and the daytime. It's almost like two separate.
Okay.
The daytime when you have the energy vampire.
Right.
And there's this one episode that was like one of my all-time favorites, where the energy vampire meets another energy vampire, but she's stronger.
Oh, no.
And at first he meets her like on a dating thing, I think it was, or she starts at work, and she's like, he's feeding more than she is, and she's stronger than him.
Oh shit.
Cause she's like a real Debbie Downer, you know? It's just so freaking funny. It's such a good show.
What was her name?
Did
they actually give her the name Debbie? Because that would have been awesome.
No, I don't know what her name is. I have to.
Because that would have been so smart.
So I'm reading here in one of the things in the Wikipedia where it says that they had proposed a sequel, but on the werewolf side.
Oh, I'd love that.
And but they had to stop productions. There were some production issues, but that's what they were. The rumored title was supposed to be What We Do in the Moonlight.
That's smart. Yeah, it would be smart. See, we didn't really talk enough about the vampires. Like, he's saying, I'm the alpha. Whatever I say, you know, they listen to me. Yeah. And then he's like making them laugh. And he's like, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? And he's like, I don't know why I'm laughing, because you're telling me to laugh. And he's like, that's not the right answer. And he's like being the alpha, but he's like,
the alpha werewolf.
Yeah, yes. But he's trying to like train them, but in this douchey, like cute, nice way.
Yeah.
They're like your typical beer drinking. You would see them around a fire, like hanging out, college dudes, but they're all fucking werewolves. I thought that was really smart the way they did that, like a pack of guys, you know?
So the show has a lot of cameos from different comedians and stuff. Yeah, like Nick Kroll and, you know, people of that caliber.
Right.
Yeah, Paul Rubens was also on the show.
So are the werewolves on the show, or is just the vampires?
I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't really remember if the werewolves are on it. But I would say yeah, because it closely follows the show.
Oh, okay.
I mean the movie, you know.
Yeah. Fun fact. In The Lost Boys, there's a list of rules for being a vampire.
Okay.
This movie follows all the rules. So any rule that was in The Lost Boys, like being exposed to daylight.
Right.
The silver.
Yeah, the silver, about being banished from your village. That's why they all had to leave their villages and they go to New Zealand, because these are all rules that were in The Lost Boys. So that's where they get all of their rules.
The show is the 4 vampires live in Staten Island.
These 4 guys?
Yes, these 4.
Oh, they moved to Staten Island?
Yes, and it's just like they get no respect because they live in Staten Island. Yeah. So in this case, Nandor the Relentless is the self-proclaimed leader. And there's a married couple, Laszlo and Nadja.
Okay.
And Colin Robinson, which is an energy vampire.
Oh, okay.
And he works in an office.
See, that is so fucking smart.
And then their familiar Guillermo, who's a gay.
Guillermo.
It's on FX.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, I love FX. They always do really good.
It really is such a good show. And it's like little clips of the movie. Like shorter
It's really smart. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad we picked this.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have never even thought to watch something like this. So I'm actually really glad we picked this, because this is really good. Thanks a lot, Amy.
Yeah.
Good suggestion.
So overall, did you enjoy the movie?
Oh, I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad we watched this. Yeah.
What about you? This was pretty good.
Yeah. I know you were trying to watch it a couple of times with your wife. Did you end up getting her to watch it?
No, she walked away.
Oh, okay.
She walked away. It's not her taste.
This is not really your cup of tea.
It's not my cup of tea. I love vampire movies and comedy vampire movies. I've watched them. This is not normally my cup of tea. There were some fun stuff, and I can relate. It's listening to you guys talk about it. I was like, yeah, I could feel that a little bit more than I was when I was initially watching. It's hard to watch it on your own without outside feedback to give you something more to talk about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And now that I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was interesting. Funny, That was good. So
there's so many scenes in this movie that, like, if you watched it over and over again, you'd be able to pick up on new things.
And that's where I'm at. I'm like, ooh, I should probably go watch it again. And get and see a little bit more and have a different feedback now. Going in on it.
I think that's something about shows like The Office or shows that are with a very dry sense of humor that you don't always, it's not like outright like ha funny. Right. You're not like scream laughing. Very rarely you are, but it's so smartly done and really, really, you have to pay attention. You have to be a little bit smart to kind of...
It really connects with the viewer.
The regular person that's watching the show.
Right, because it's one of those things where it's funny because it's true.
Right.
It's funny because it's happened.
Right.
It's funny because you've had an experience like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But in this case, I enjoyed it so much because in this case, we have no idea about what a vampire is because it's false. It's a fake thing, right? Right. But they made it they aligned it so much with real life that it's like, yeah, that is what a vampire reality show would look like.
Right, right. And it's like these real life situations of all different stages in life. Like I was saying with Nick, just being like a young 21-year-old learning how to go to a bar and not be an asshole. It was exactly what he was doing, was breaking all the rules of like exactly what 21-year-olds
young, dumb, and full of cum.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's what Nick, if you had to describe him, young, dumb, and full of cum.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like just trying
Jackie
to pick up chicks.
Getting used and Deacon using her in that way. Like,
she's a mom and she's just like...
Well, almost like you said, like a celebrity with an assistant, or like sometimes I was, when you have a gay guy and then you have the straight friend that's always still trying to fuck him, but she's like always there, like, well, I'll do this thing for you, and whatever, but it's the same thing. Like, I'm going to use her and get what I want out of it. And so there's all these little scenarios of real life that really, really does happen, and you really get to see it, but through the lens of a vampire. So it's fun. It's so fun. It's really,
but the
really
dynamics
cute.
were real.
The dynamics are 100% real, and that's what's so funny about The Office.
Right.
Is like, no, Michael Scott is not a real... but we've all had this nerdy boss that like just wants to be cool, that was like a nerd with power, like...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
The worst type of situation where your boss is a guy that's trying so hard to fit in.
Right.
And that's what made The Office so personable.
Right.
Because everybody knows some guy that tries ultra hard to fit in and just can't.
Or the Jim character that's like, I'm bigger than this life that I've been given.
Right.
But I fucked up here or there or whatever, and I ended up here. I'm just working here until I can get somewhere better. Right. And then they're a dick to everyone,
Right. But that's how this movie was.
It's exactly the same way.
Feel.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was really, really cute. I'm glad we watched this.
Yeah, I'm so glad. So next time we're gonna watch I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
How many episodes is that?
It's 9 episodes.
Like, I really hope that you watched the movie before listening to us.
Yeah,
we basically just retold you the movie. So if you want to be on board with that, it comes out when?
January 1st.
And so we'll be doing that. So watch that so we don't ruin it for you.
Right. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. Truly, like, it means the world to us. We can't express that enough. Ever.
All right. Goodbye.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Thanks for dining with us. See you next week.